My name is Robert Graham Lewis. Between August 26 and September 7, 2022, I had a dream from God. It was such a profound and disturbing experience that I couldn't forget it, even when I tried to put it out of my mind in my daily life. I couldn't shake the feeling of restlessness that accompanied me, as if something dark had been trapped inside me. After that dream, I decided to write it down in a journal. On August 26, 2022, I decided to write it down. And although I had dreamed it again the night before, I felt I should share it. Jesus, my love, gave me another dream a couple of weeks ago. One that troubled me deeply, to the point that I didn't even want to write it down. Despite my fears and discomfort, I chose obedience, and today I find myself writing it down just as you asked. The dream began in a place I couldn't call a temple. Although in my mind, I saw it as a sanctuary. It was a profane sanctuary filled with false divinities and adorned with marble columns. They rose imposingly throughout the room. The marble that covered the floor and walls seemed expensive, a shiny, pristine, and well-maintained material. But there was something strange about the surroundings, something that didn't fit. The floor was covered in a pattern of black and white checkered tiles. A design that seemed forced into a place that should somehow be sacred, but instead of generating peace, it only increased the feeling of desolation. As my gaze scanned the space, my attention focused on the altar in the center of the room. It was large, flat, made of marble, and its surface was stained with fresh blood. It wasn't the blood of an animal, but of a human being. I could feel it deep within me, and a cold shiver ran through my body. My mind began to fill with disturbing images, as if the blood belonged to an innocent child, or maybe even several victims, which made me feel an indescribable horror. At that moment, a sound to my left distracted me. I turned slowly and saw some heavy red curtains hung to one side, partially covering something in the shadows. From between the curtains emerged a solitary figure wrapped in black, advancing. With a disturbing calm, the atmosphere in the room was dense, laden with evil. Something could be felt in the air. The light was dim, illuminating the space with a red glow. As if something dark were watching from the shadows, my heart began to throb, and my skin prickled. Something inside me told me that I should get out of there, that this place wasn't safe. However, my feet seemed nailed to the ground. The figure continued its march toward the altar, and I, trembling, whispered in a barely audible voice, "Why am I here, Jesus, my love? Why am I here?" I didn't get an audible response, but deep within me, I heard his voice. Soft and reassuring. "Look." Although fear enveloped me, his voice gave me strength. I knew I had to do what he asked of me. So, with my heart racing and tears about to fall, I chose to continue. Ahead, the figure was now clearly visible, wearing a black hooded cloak. And somehow, the image of a druid priest arose in my mind. It wasn't a feeling of supposition, but a certainty. He advanced solemnly, carrying in his hands a golden chalice adorned with gems. He approached the altar with the reverence of one holding something sacred. Although his purpose was dark and evil, he raised the chalice with both hands and began to murmur words in a language unknown to me, but which echoed in my mind with an indescribable burden of evil. A growing anguish filled me as I looked at that scene, and inside, I cried out, "Oh Jesus, my love, I don't want to be here." It was then that I felt a gentle hand on my shoulder. I turned quickly, and there he was, my beloved Jesus, standing beside me. His presence was full of tenderness and compassion. He calmed me instantly. His eyes looked at me with a deep, loving gaze, and his soft, reassuring voice said, "You must see and share this, my son, but you don't have to. I am only here with you." The tears sprouted in my eyes, and through my eyes, I whispered, "It's okay, my lovely Jesus. It's okay." His comforting embrace gave me strength as I turned my gaze toward the scene unfolding before me. The figure already standing at the altar raised the chalice above his head and with a voice full of sinister authority proclaimed these words, "For you, Father. It echoed in the room with a strange weight, as if referring to something or someone other than what I knew. I saw how that empty figure, drinking the blood slowly, as if it were a practice sacred to him. He knew beyond a doubt that what he drank was human blood, and a deep horror came over me. After drinking, he left the empty chalice on the altar and knelt, still with the hood over his head. It was at that moment, as he slowly pulled back the hood. My heart sank. It was him. It was the same man I had seen in other visions and dreams. It was the Antichrist. My gaze returned to Jesus, and fear invaded my chest. He perceived my thoughts and whispered to me as if reading my soul. "Little son, you must share what is shown to you. Do not fear, you are protected by me. My blood is within you. You are safe." I felt a momentary relief within me, a calm that only he could give. With renewed determination, I turned my attention to the Antichrist. He began to pray, but soon his voice changed. The words he spoke were incomprehensible, but the sound chilled me. It was an ancient Babylonian language. I could feel the presence of something else, something even darker. The Antichrist called upon his father, asking for his presence. It wasn't long before a dark, almost smoke-like figure began to materialize next to him. It was a heavy, ominous presence, and from it emanated a voice laden with evil and contempt. I realize once again that Satan, our enemy, tries to imitate the glory of the holy God. But while Jehovah manifested himself with a cloud by day and fire by night, Satan has chosen an opposite, grotesque form, a dense, black smoke. And charred, swirling with a life of its own. The darkness that envelops him is not only an absence of light but a living presence, a malignant shadow that absorbs everything in its path, devouring the essence of the environment with its dark influence. Within him, scarlet sparks spring forth like burning embers. With suppressed anger, announcing that his arrival is steeped in hatred and blasphemy, the Antichrist, who moments before seemed so confident and dominant, now trembles with an almost childlike emotion as he addresses the presence he has summoned. His voice vibrates with a mixture of reverence and anxiety. "Father, Father, you have come, you are here," he exclaims, bowing devoutly before the dark figure that has emerged from the smoke. The answer he receives is deep and icy, a voice that resounds with a weight of indescribable evil. "Yes, my son, my pet. I have arrived. Why have you called me? We are still in time." The question seems to resonate in the pillars of the temple like an echo impossible to ignore. The Antichrist hesitates for the first time, his hands tremble, and his voice breaks as he answers, "Yes, Father, but also no." The uncertainty in his words causes a shift in the darkness. The black smoke begins to churn, swirling with increasing intensity, and from its cracks a dark red begins to glow, an ominous sign of Satan's growing fury. The anger contained within his essence seeps out, threatening to break out like a storm. Beside me, Jesus watches the scene with absolute serenity. His smile is calm, but his eyes hold a deep understanding. When he looks at me, he nods softly, indicating for me to continue watching. Satan's voice cuts through the air with a fiery, white-hot fury like a dagger tearing through the atmosphere. "What do you mean?" he roars, and the sound of his anger causes the flames on the temple supports to flicker violently. The usually self-assured Antichrist is now visibly shaken. His countenance has lost all arrogance, and fear has replaced it. The coldness with which he used to speak stammers, trying to find the right words, but his fear betrays him. His voice is hurried and trembling. "Father, your blood has been perfected. The demonic blood made from sin incarnate. The black fluid called graphene, combined with the blood of innocents, is ready. It no longer kills the body, but rather mimics the healing properties of those filthy Nazarenes. At least at first." He pauses, swallowing as he observes the shadow's reaction to him. Then he continues in an anxious tone. "When I am miraculously revived from the fatal wound in my head, this substance will begin to alter humanity. It will transform their bodies. It will turn them into hybrid soldiers fused with the machine, linked to artificial intelligence. They will aid us in our final battle against that Nazarene. His face glows with a sickly light as he proudly adds, we have already begun to introduce it into medical treatments and cures. Soon, the insignia of ownership will also be infused into his brand. Nazarenes will voluntarily take the air becomes even denser. Satan remains silent for a moment, absorbing his son's words. Then, with a calculating and poisonous tone, he replies, "This is good, my pet." Suddenly, something emerges from the black smoke. An arm is grot, fresh and horrible. Covered in darkened, torn flesh, stained with scarlet. The long, yellowish nails of his curled fingers shine with an unhealthy glow. The hand slowly extends and, with a disturbingly paternal gesture, strokes the Antichrist's head in a grotesque display of affection. The creature shudders with pleasure at the contact, like a submissive animal before its master. His body relaxes with a sigh of ecstasy. But the sweetness of that gesture is short-lived. In an instant, the change is abrupt. The same hand that was caressing with apparent tenderness becomes a weapon of domination. Satan's claws dig into the Antichrist's head, forcing him to look directly into the eyes of the servant of the Evil One. They open wide with pure terror, reflecting the growing anger of their master. Satan speaks in a tone laced with venom. His voice bubbles with hatred. You said yes, no, to my question, my son. Where have you failed? The Antichrist tries to explain, the blood of the innocent. The supply we prepared for the next mark is gone, Father, everything is gone. His words are tinged with desperation as he continues speaking in a hurry. All we have is what we have already managed to introduce into the global supply of medications and oral treatments. A deadly silence steady fills the room, but only for a second. In a deafening roar, the wrath of Satan erupts. With a brutal movement, he removes his hand from the Antichrist's head and, in a fit of fury, delivers a blow so powerful that his body is thrown backward upon impact with a marble column. The Antichrist falls to the ground, writhing in pain. His voice is barely a whisper when he tries to speak. Father, forgive me, we had your Nephilim and the fallen protecting each site. The vats were sealed. No one could have taken the blood unless it was by decree of the courts of heaven. The words seem to further fuel Satan's fury. His roar becomes a torrent of uncontrolled rage. He curses in a tongue that resonates with unholy venom. His words slice through the air like invisible blades. The Nazarene has no right. Since I deceived Eve in the Garden of Eden, the dominion of this world is mine, but not my property. Jehovah God cannot break his own holy laws. He must remain faithful to his ethics, bound by his honor. The Antichrist, still on the ground, his body trembling and doubled over in pain, stammers, but he is holy. He would never break his rules. So who, Father? Who could have done this? His voice is barely an echo of what used to be reduced to the anguish of someone who fears he has irrevocably failed his master. Satan's voice thunders with a fury that shakes the very structure of the temple. These cursed praying saints have learned to invoke the power of blood in the name of that vile Nazarene. They have appealed to the courts of heaven in the name of the innocent blood that we illegally took, and in repenting, they have stripped us of our legal rights. Their fury is uncontrollable, and in their desperation, their shadow grows, encompassing more and more space, devouring the dim light of the sanctuary. And heaven responded to their plea. The revelation fell upon the Antichrist like an invisible blow. It paralyzed him in place. His mouth remained half open in a state of absolute shock. His eyes, normally filled with coldness and cunning, darkened with the weight of disbelief and fear. As if trying to cling to the last crumb of security, he stammered clumsily, "But you have dominion, Father." His voice trembled with uncertainty and despair. The thick, black smoke that surrounded Satan began to twist with growing fury, as if it had a life of its own, absorbing the little light that remained in the sanctuary. His demonic silhouette warped and expanded, and in the midst of that fog of absolute darkness, his face began to materialize in a monstrous form. It was a void hanging in the blackness, with hollow eyes that burned with incandescent rage. His voice emerged as a deep, piercing, guttural roar, shaking every pillar of the temple with his terrible presence. "Yes, Dominion," he growled with a tone that vibrated in the air like thunder that never ends, "but only upon those who are soaked in sin, those who have sold their will, those whose flesh and spirit have been departed. By their own depravity, those belong to me." The smoke swirled with more violence, expanding as if their fury itself were a hurricane. Formless, but those Christian covered by the filthy blood of the Nazarenes, their tone changed. Their contempt engulfed each word as if they were burning embers. "These Christian abhorrent human have had their dominion restored. They can cry out to the courts of heaven. They can invoke the power of the Most High and thwart us. They have taken away what is rightfully ours." Their final roar was so devastating that the very structure of the sanctuary trembled. The torches were extinguished for an instant before rekindling with a murky, dull fire. And the walls vibrated as if hell itself were responding to their wrath. "Despicable Nazarene!" Satan's cry echoed so loudly that the Antichrist shrank in terror. His already trembling body seemed to shrink even more at his master's wrath. His skin paled even more. His legs faltered. And for a moment, it seemed to doubt his own existence. But then, abruptly, the fury in Satan's voice dissipated. Something changed in the fire. His eyes softened, and a malicious smile appeared on his anger-warped lips. It wasn't an expression of satisfaction, but something far worse. It was the smile of someone who has discovered a new game. The Antichrist, still trembling, cautiously stood up. His black cloak trailed behind him, as if refusing to part from his master's shadow. The air turned cold and heavy, laden with a malevolent silence. The threat of anger was still there, latent in the air, waiting for the right moment to erupt again. It was then that I felt the gentle touch of a hand on mine. The warmth of his presence was immediate, dispelling the chill in the air, protecting me from the evil that surrounded me. Jesus! His firm but comforting grip was an anchor in the midst of the storm of darkness I was witnessing. It was then that I felt the gentle touch of a hand on mine. The warmth of his presence was immediate, dispelling the coldness of the air, protecting me from the evil that surrounded me. He was with me. I didn't need words to know, but when I turned to him, I saw the serene smile of my beloved Savior. His eyes shone with absolute tenderness. "It's okay, son," he said gently. I knew his plan before time began. Relief flooded my chest, dissipating the tension that gripped me. His peace was stronger than any storm, more real than any nightmare. I smiled back, and my heart found refuge in the certainty of his words. Then, I returned my attention to the scene in front of me, determined to be witness to the rest of that dark procedure. Nothing that happened would escape my Lord's authority. The attention in the room thickened again. It felt like an invisible weight weighing down the air, as if reality itself were warping in the presence of so much darkness. It was the Antichrist who spoke. First, his voice was no longer shaky but had regained a sinister resolve. Something in him had changed. "Father, what is it?" he asked. His tone brimmed with sudden confidence, as if he had found a new purpose. In desperation, Satan responded with a malevolent laugh that echoed through the air like a melody of chaos. There was no joy in that sound. Only wickedness. The harvest spoke with a poisonous tone, the sacrifices of the full moon. A shiver ran down my spine as I heard it. My stomach churned with the certainty that what they were planning was not only evil, but calculated with demonic precision. I whispered, almost without realizing it, "Jesus, I am so glad you are here with me." To which he replied with infinite sweetness, "Me too." The Antichrist nodded fervently. His voice exuded a sick devotion. "Yes, yes, Father. We are scheduled for our worldwide sacrifice on the 10th and 11th of this month in honor of you, Father. To pledge our loyalty and worship you alone." His eyes shone with the intensity of a fanatic who no longer recognizes the horror of his own actions. "They empower us so that we can work at your side as we rule this world. but his expression changed subtly. Something was troubling him. He dared to add cautiously, "But Father, this will not provide enough innocent blood to prepare more demonic blood." His words became even more shaky as he added, "We need more, not only for the mark but to fuel the particle machines. We need to open the portal. Search for our Nephilim brothers and reclaim the fallen kingdom of Atlantis." Satan remained silent for a moment, as if assessing the situation, then with a voice dripping with sweetness deceitfully extended his clawed hand, "Son, gathers more innocent and equally tainted blood." His tone was seductive, but his intention was pure poison. "Life is in the blood. He will take more impure blood. Yes, but it will be enough for our purposes." His expression twisted into a grimace of dark satisfaction. He had already made his decision. The Antichrist hesitated. Something in his posture indicated that not everything was going as he had hoped. Then, with a mixture of worry and hidden rage, he said, "Father, my lord. Some now know about our demonic blood." His eyes hardened. "The Nazarenes have received dreams and visions from him." Satan roared with uncontrolled fury, releasing a wave of curses in a Babylonian tongue that filled the air with demonic vibrations. "I told you that I would discredit them," he shouted. Then his tone turned even more lethal. "Who is causing the biggest problem?" The Antichrist hesitated a moment before answering. "A pastor in Kentucky and a prayer warrior in Tennessee. They won't stop praying." Satan growled with a guttural sound and angrily raised a dark tablet. Covered with inscriptions in a forbidden language, he looked at the reports. The prayers were shaking his kingdom. "Bram, fools. It only takes one. Only one who knows his worth in the Nazarene and the power of his blood to thwart our plans." He slowly turned to the Antichrist. His voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "Why didn't this stop?